So you brought up Noah, and I actually wanted to transition to that really quickly. I wanted to know that relationship has been so fruitful for you both. I wanted to know, like, what's that story? How did you guys meet? How did you both decide that you should be doing the project? What was that like?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna be honest with you. There's a tiny little bit of nepotism in the whole thing.
That's fine.
And it's not technically nepotism because no one's related. But my manager is also Noah's manager.
Oh, okay.
And at the time, here's the caveat: is that Noah was working with another producer, and they had started doing, and it just didn't go well. And they were running out of time, and they were in a scramble. And they were kind of like, well, what if Gabe did it? You know, like, and Noah and I had like hung out with each other like one other time, and I love Noah. He's so funny, and we had a great hang. And okay, he was like, okay, cool, let's go give it a try. And I was like, well, if we're gonna do it, let's bring in Conrad. Conrad's been my best friend since 2008. He's my engineer partner. I started working with him while I was in that band. He had produced those records, and we worked together and kind of figuring out how we collaboratively function. I mean, again, he's my best friend, so like we instinctively know how to function, like how to do everything.
Right. And
so we started doing it, and we did the first version of Stick Season, and we were kind of like, I think this is too complicated. And then we did another version. Was like, well, this one feels like too uncomplicated. And then we're like, well, we'll do one more version of Stick. And so then we landed on this like uncomplicated like plus.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Well, what was
which was this, like,
before we go off that, what was too complicated about like the first one? Like, it was just too many parts, or
I think the same. That's a good question. I think that as a person who hadn't historically spent a lot of time listening to folk music or enjoying folk music, who had probably gotten a little too deep into like the alternative and pop space at times, I just felt like it needed certain things to make it sound a certain way. It wasn't like modern-y stuff, but it was just more things, like bass and needed piano and needed like all these extra rhythms and stuff like that. But I remember this conversation Noah and I had when we were talking about New Perspective. One of the songs on the record is that I remember listening to the lyrics on the demo he sent me, and I was like, man, this is like Mark Twain of New England. It's the words that he spoke and the words that he said. I had never been to this place, but one of the lines is, the intersection got a Target and they're calling it downtown. Where I grew up in my small town, I remember when we got that. And it changed everything. We were hanging out there Friday nights, like just like chilling. Like, at a Target, or actually my town was a Walmart Supercenter.
Oh, okay.
And I just remembered that. And then and it was important because I think I stopped in that moment and I was like, it's all about the words.
Right.
It's all about the lyrics and storytelling. So that, I'm very grateful, happened within the first two songs of the record, because we didn't have to go down this huge what's the true north thing. It was like, no, it's just about the story. It's about the words. So what are we going to do to make it the least complicated, that reinforces the story in the song, that sounds and feels exactly like a person singing and writing these songs, so it doesn't feel convoluted at all. And it's not impossible to pull off live because it's so easy but rich and nice. So I sat with Stick, and I was back here in my studio after we'd spent the day together, and I was like, well, I want a kick, but I didn't like kicks, and so I was just like, I started pounding on the acoustic, and that's the kick drum.
That's so. Can I say I have, because we're going to talk about Sixth Season in a second, but one of my notes here was like, the kick is perfect. I love it. Is it a reel or a sample? And there you go. It was just
me pounding on my acoustic guitar.
Wow, that's incredible.
So Noah does not play with a pick.
Right.
So he plays with his fingers, and historically, he actually hadn't played on a lot of his songs. Joe Little had played on most of them in the past. And I was like, we got to have him finger picking because it's great. It's iconically Noah. This could be the new thing.
Right.
And they were like, well, this doesn't drive as well without so I became his pick, I would accent whatever he would do as my driving pick hand. So then we added that. And then I was like, well, kind of want to rip a banjo part, you know?
Yeah.
I have a picture of me sitting in my overalls in the studio, just like,
Oh,
like, and I'm just like, this is the
amazing.
most hilariously banjo part ever. And I love it. And it was so perfect. And it felt like a nice little lift. And we had tons of harmonies on the song.
yeah.
Everything. And every time we did it, we're like, it's not as good. And I give a lot of credit to the team. And I mean the team. I mean Drew Simmons, who manages Noah and I, and to Ben Adelson at Republic. They were like, the song's already like, people love it. Like, don't make it
Chill.
Don't like get in. Don't like flop a bunch of shit on there to like make it busy.
Yeah. This is the thing that keeps popping up, and it's on the podcast, is the power of the mute button when you're producing, and it's so powerful. And like everyone should play that mute game when you're kind of towards the end of the production, because
and also on effects. You know, like I think we all get a little gung ho on reverb.
Yeah.
Because we think we adds more vibe and it really does. I mean, like there are moments in the record where reverb just makes it.
Right.
But like there's also the beauty to like just the simplicity of